Let's move on, chaps, to the automatic promotion discussion. We were talking about Sheffield United there. Obviously, we've spoken about Sunderland a little bit, Leeds, Burnley. Let's touch on, and things do change, or you do flip-flop, potentially. So we've got our automatic promotion sides. Has anything changed for you guys? I'll go to you first, Ollie, in terms of your picks for the automatic this game week. What are your thoughts, mate? And are you going to back your beloved Sheffield United, which surely Ollie will do, to get automatic promotion?
Of course, surely I'm going to back my own team. Look, since the start of the season, I started the season, we did our 1 to 24s, and I backed Leeds and Burnley. They were the two that I picked. I thought Leeds are the outstanding team in the league for me. I think by a long way they seem to pass the eye test. I think if they can resolve some of the defensive issues, particularly around Meslier, because obviously he has cost them points that they should have won. Ultimately, you're looking at Hull, Portsmouth, you can probably list off 5 games where
Keep
you're
going.
thinking, can just go and go and go. But I think once you resolve that problem, I think is it 5 clean sheets in a row that he's kept now? So
well, 4 of them Meslier hardly had anything to do, but the last game was the 2-0 win at Coventry. Was there anything there, Connor, for you to kind of grab onto, or for him to grab onto?
Yeah, he made a world-class save, Ilan Mele, and there was another very, very good one, but I was kind of looking, maybe I'm a bit critical, but I was looking at the second one, which he tipped onto the bar, and I thought I'd kind of be expecting an outstanding keeper at this level to make that save.
It's almost like because the bar has been lowered, you're almost trying to look for a bit of
that's why he managed to tip it onto it.
That is marvellous.
There you go, yeah. But the first one, how he got down to it, I don't know if you chaps have seen it, it was a wonderful save from Ellis Sims. So, yeah, I'm kind of with Ollie. I'll match him on that. I am going to go Leeds automatic promotion. A little bit of bias, but I do think Leeds, I think Ollie's bang on the money. We do pass the eye test and the stats don't always lie. Leeds are at the top of pretty much every attacking metric. Defensively, we're still pretty good as well. Gab, anything different from yourself?
My top 2 is Sunderland and Leeds. I think Sunderland are going to go to Elland Road and win next week. That's my prediction. That's my wild shout.
Clip it up, producer.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that once Sunderland get Romain Mundle and or Tommy Watson back fit, I think they're going to find another gear. They've still been able to tick off points even when they've been a little bit limited. They've had to play midfielders out wide. You move Enzo Lefebvre into midfield and you pair him with Joe Bellingham when he comes back, I think you've got a completely different proposition, Connor. So for me, I'm sticking with Sunderland to win the league, but I think Leeds also finish in the top 2.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you there. I think it's really important moving Lefebvre into that central attacking midfield spot. Mundle coming back. I genuinely didn't think there was much of a downturn from Jack Clark leaving to Mundle. I think Mundle really stepped up earlier on in the season. They've massively missed him.
And even Mundle to Tommy Watson.
Yeah.
Like Watson played well for a month or 2 when Mundle got injured as well. So
Tommy Watson was outstanding at Bramall Lane. That was probably the first game, Harry Souttar played that one. He got sent off, but he did play some of it. But that was mainly because Watson had just given us such a ragged time that by the time we got to half time, we were all making mistakes defensively, and that ultimately creates the chance. For me, Sunderland, I really like them. I think there's so much to love about that club, and I think actually long term, they're set up probably better than, well, certainly better than I think United and Burnley in terms of long-term stability and being able to establish themselves as a Premier League team. So I think the youth, I think the way that they've set up their academy, the way they've been recruiting, they seem perfectly run and they seem like they're making sustainable improvements year on year to really take themselves forward. But I think this is a year too soon for them. I just don't think at the moment they've got the consistency to really be the team who are going to kick on, because they've got games like at the weekend, where they've gone, Watford have come to the Stadium of Light, and, I've just said United were rubbish, but we won. And I just don't see that from Sunderland. I don't see them playing rubbish and winning. And I think that's going to be the difference between coming 3rd or 4th and coming 2nd. You've got to be able to maximise your points. And I think actually the best team at doing that is going to be Burnley. They're my pick to go up with Leeds. I think Leeds win the league ultimately by about 10 points. I think then Burnley, they're solid, the way that they defend, the way that they're organised, the way that they can just shut down a game once they've scored a goal. Particularly with the recruitment. I love the recruitment of Marcus Edwards. I think he's going to be an outstanding player between now and the end of the season and could be the difference maker between them finishing above United.
Yeah, I guess the next point of conversation is to move on to the playoffs, which is always the most interesting bit of the championship. So much to predict here.
Connor, before that, who do you think is going up with Leeds?
He tried to weasel away.
Thought I got away there. Yeah.
Cop out Connor will call you now.
I want the tag here. Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, after that, I agree with Gab. I think Sunderland are. You talked about the eye test. I think when you watch Sunderland, when they're in flow, they're in full flow. They're an outstanding team to watch. They're very, very good. Sheffield United, you mentioned it earlier, and I agree with you. We were speaking about off air. Need that statement win. Obviously, Burnley coming up, Leeds coming up, Middlesbrough coming up, Sheffield Wednesday coming up. Huge games there of which they can provide that. But I think Leeds and Sunderland are the best teams in the division, and I think that consistency will be ironed out. The only concern I have with Sunderland is that defensive record. I'm not 100% sure I trust Luke O'Nien.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's an absolute mentality monster, and I think he's a really important part of their dressing room because I think he rubs off on some of these young talents. But is he maybe a top 2 quality centre out? Yeah. Was it rubbed off? No, I don't know that he's a top 2 quality centre half, so I can understand your point there.
Playoffs then?
Playoffs, Burnley, Sheffield United, West Brom and Norwich for me.
Oh.
I'm going to show my sheet because I've got United, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, and I've crossed out as strong as possible the word Sheffield Wednesday because I cannot bring myself to predict that United are going to play them in the first. Oh God, I'd be sick. So I've crossed it out and I've gone for Coventry. They've had a really good recent upturn. Their form looks really strong. Lampard does seem to have an impact. Now, personally, I think he's probably benefiting from a little bit of variance around what was happening under Mark Robbins, and now it's falling their way. But I do think that they've had a really strong run. I'm looking at those points. I'm looking at how quickly they're coming up. And I think they are. Well, at the start of the season, I thought they were one of the best teams in the league. They're now starting to show that in their form, and I'm hoping to God that it's them and not Wednesday that finish 6th.
Coventry over West Brom, though, who have been there all season, or over Norwich, who have been easily a top 6 side when Josh Sargent's fit?
Yeah, I really like Norwich and I really like Josh Sargent. I think he will have a massive impact in terms of the way that they're going to go forwards and trying to get them into the playoffs. I think ultimately it's a really difficult decision. Sure. For me, a lot of it does come down to, when we've played these teams, Coventry were outstanding. I thought they did a real job on us when we've played them, whereas Norwich, for me, they were just lacking a little bit. I think as well, I go back to the start of the season and I look at the way I evaluated these squads and the way that I was putting them together. And I felt that Norwich were in a bit of a transition year. Sure. Felt that they got work to do. They were still developing. This wasn't their year to really go and run at it. And so I think ultimately, as we get to the end of the season, they'll be looking at this and thinking, maybe it is an opportunity missed, but it's set them up perfectly to go again next season. Whereas Coventry feel a lot more ready to go and do it now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm still going with Sheffield United in there. I'm going with Burnley. I'm going with West Brom, and I'm going with Middlesbrough.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I think Middlesbrough, they're just so wildly, at their best, I think they're on a par with any of the top 4, or maybe excluding Leeds, because Leeds have been great. But yeah, whereas I think that their floor is very low, and that's the problem with Middlesbrough. Can you rely on them? But I also think the bar for the playoffs generally is quite low. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of points outside the top 4. I think there's going to be a lot of points that are kind of be spread out quite evenly, and maybe Middlesbrough, because of their high ceiling, they can kind of get away with maybe having a low floor.
Back to you. Relegation 3.
Relegation 3. I've gone with Luton Town, Cardiff City and Plymouth Argyle, but I'm not confident in a single one of my predictions.
No, I've been saying this all day since we came together. I've been like, I have no idea who's getting relegated. This is genuinely, I think, for me, the worst area of the league to try and predict, because I feel as though I've got a really strong feeling on automatics. I believe in Leeds. I believe in Burnley, really, in terms of getting over the line. Like I say, I'm quite confident in terms of the playoffs, who is going to be the ones who make that jump. Whereas relegation, I genuinely think it could be anybody. Today, I've landed on Plymouth because I just think they've got too much work to do in terms of catching up. But I do think they'll have a pretty positive run to the end of the season. I just don't think it'll be enough. Ultimately, I'm going for Cardiff. So I think the new manager change at Derby will make a huge difference. I think if they are able to get John Eustace, that's massive. And so I think that'll be a real impetus for them to kick on, make sure they're not in the trouble.
I would have definitely gone with Derby if it wasn't for the managerial change and the likelihood of them getting Eustace.
Agreed. And then I've gone controversially, very controversially, I've gone for Stoke in the final relegation spot. I'm looking at the league and I'm looking at the teams that are in and around there and I'm thinking, well, Hull have just come and battered us 3-0 at Bramall Lane, so there's no way I'm picking them to go down. Portsmouth have just played us off the park at Bramall Lane. Derby have just done a new manager change. So suddenly I'm looking at Stoke and I'm looking at Luton as the two teams who are in my debate for that final spot. And it's naivete, it's arrogance, it's probably absolute nonsense, but I just can't see Luton going down at the minute. A double dip, I think, is so unlikely. I don't know why I can't buy into it, but for me, between Stoke and Luton, it was Stoke that I took a gamble on.
But that's what the Championship relegation battle is making us do. It's making us doubt Mark Robbins.
Yeah,
like that's how mad it is.
100%. And I'm looking at that whole sort of bottom piece there, and Cardiff I just can't see going. I can't see going. A little bit of a recent upturn in form. I'm still going with Plymouth. I agree with you, Gab and Ollie. I think they've got too much to do there, even with
just the maths, isn't it? As much as you want to believe in Muslich, it's just too much of a I
agree with you in terms of Luton. I've kind of just checked. I mean, look, the form is abhorrent. It's very, very bad. I thought Bloomfield may have had a little bit more of an impact there so far. I think they'll go, and I'm gonna throw Hull City in there as well. I just think the teams in and around them, I agree with Gab. I think Derby are going to get that boost if Eustace goes. Portsmouth, they're too strong, I feel, to go there.
But you know what, Connor? What's brilliant about this from a neutral point of view is it wouldn't surprise me if any of the 9 went down.
No. From Preston.
I almost want, maybe from Preston, but I almost want to make a case for any of them to stay up, because I do. But that's just how crazy it is. So really exciting from a neutral point of view.